this for you. Okay, so we're going to get data from the internet. What's the point of it? Well, let's take a look at the homework, and hopefully this will help explain it a bit here. Bringing up my browser to this course as JSmart. Over to Schoology. Log in as JSmart. And we'll go to this class here in Schoology. And the assignments here section, going to go down to the Internet Data Import. Excel gives us graphing capabilities, and there's tons of data there out on the internet. Right now, we're just going to analyze some specific data provided for us by the U.S. Geological Survey. But just imagine, well, you don't even have to imagine, there are tons of information out there for you, for just waiting for you to dig through. Yes, ma'am. What's that? Your mouse is not working?
No, like
Just for you or for everybody? Let's check to see what's going on there. We don't need internet problems.
I don't know if that means.
Now your speaker's off. Good, that'll fix it. Do a little refresh thingy right there. Click on that baby. Your wire is connected. Internet. Oh, that's telling you no internet there too. Let me disconnect your wire and connect it back in. Sometimes that fixes it. Yeah, we need that little guy to go to connect it instead of something. How about this? Click on your little window there. Click on here. And do a restart. We don't need internet trouble. What's weird is everyone else is working. Yeah, it's like it saw you coming. The person that was here before didn't have trouble, as far as I know. Yeah. Well, let's see if that'll fix it. So those of you that are waiting, click on that link and explore what that data link takes you to. And you see there on that map, you've got little gauges of the river height measurements across the country. This is just one convenient place for some fun river data, but one big skill you could have is learning where the data is out there on the internet. Here I found river data just because it's somewhat interesting, and it's right, we're in Dubuque, right on the river, and we were having floods. I think when I was thinking about some assignment with this, I thought, hey, is there data out there we could just see historical river height? And sure enough, there it is. But you could look for data history of prices of coffee or Bitcoin price. Anyone investing in Bitcoin? It's a little risky, but it seems to be exponentially increasing. Man, if I bought Bitcoin 10 years ago, pretty well. Hey, it's working now. Okay, so go. Oh yeah, go to the course there, and then go to assignments, and then Excel data or internet data. Here, this one right there. Okay. So this is just one of the millions of sources of data for you that could be very useful. Figuring out the price of something if you're manufacturing, a market for some skills or for a company that's you're working for, or employment. Tons of data out there. We're just going to look at this data and have some fun graphing it, because I just love graphing data.
So click on this, and I have a map. I can click there to take me without waiting. And I have a map of the US, and I can click and move that map around, scroll and zoom in, roll the scroll wheel and zoom in, and I see that there are graphs along the Mississippi River, St. Louis all the way up to St. Paul, Minnesota, my hometown. It looks like they're not graphing they're not tracking the river data up there, even though it does affect them. I don't remember there being many floods. We get a few floods in this area. Notice the gauges increase as you go further south. And then when you finally get to real flood country there, lots of gauges there, perhaps monitoring where the data is going, where the river is going in those various areas. Baton Rouge is the kind of the end of the road before it hits a lot of other gauges right in the Gulf area. But let's graph the height of the river near Dubuque. Let's go back up to Dubuque. And north of Dubuque, if I zoom in here, you'll find a gauge just north of Dubuque. And why is it slowing down? Maybe too many people accessing that government site all at once. They can't handle it. Here we go. Click on that gauge, and it will show you there's a site number and the location, Clayton, Iowa. And the actual data is available in a link on that pop-up. So we want to go to that link, find Clayton, Iowa, and then click on that gauge, and then click the access data. So everyone find that?
No.
We had a guy last session, he got lost. He couldn't find Iowa. So zoom in enough to be able to see Dubuque, and then as you go up the river, you'll see a little gauge there. Click on that gauge, and it will show up. So I can zoom in and out. The zooming is kind of slow, so don't do a whole lot of zooming in and out. Everyone find it?
Wait, you went to Dubuque?
I went to north of Dubuque right there. Click on that gauge, and then click access that data. And now I have data provided for me by the U.S. Geological Survey. And I can read their news bulletins. Gives me all the description of where that measurement of the area is, how many square miles of they're collecting water from. What we care about is getting at some data that's graphable and that's interesting, or at least current. As I read through the available data, I see that they have collected data in certain places all the way up to today. Other places they've only collected up to last month. Other places they only collected some statistics until 1936. So a lot of measurements. What we care about is the height of the river. That seems like the most interesting data. Just what is the height of the gauge? So let's go to the daily data for that location. Just click on daily data now. And now I get to see a chart of the last years. It's by default shows me the last year chart since today. And it'll show me a graph if I want to see a different date time span. I can change the beginning date to 2020 and see 4 years of data since 2020 November to today November. And if I click go, it'll replot the graph down below. And so I see that back in 2021 wasn't much. 2022 got higher. 2023, ooh, big spike. And the spike is a little less this year, but still we had some flooding. Let's go back 10 years. Let's change that to 2014. And click go. And see that they will plot the data for me. And if I hover over, does it show me? It doesn't show me the height, so I don't know the exact height. I can guess it was around there. So 2019 had some flooding. 2020 not so bad. 2021 kind of dry. And this was this year's spike. So that's a lot of data to graph. Let's just graph the last 5 years of data. So let's go back to 2019. change that to a 9. And I can click go just to see the graph. See their graph. Okay, what we want to do now is bring this into Excel and make our own graphs. They're doing it for us. We want to analyze this data ourselves. Well, to do that, I need to go get the data in a different format than a graph. I want the data in what we call tab separated, or something that I can copy paste into Excel. So change the output format from a graph to tab separated. If all I care about is seeing the graph in one place, I could just say, have them show me the graph. I could do a screenshot of this. But I want to learn how to graph this in Excel and do my own analysis. So we're going to get the data, click tab separated, and now click go. And it will give me all the raw data. Look at all this data that it gives me. I want to take this data and bring it into Excel. How would you approach getting this data into Excel? How would you do it? Yeah, copy paste. Now you could also save the file and then do a data import, but yeah, copy paste is the easiest. Now I don't need this data up here, the comments, but I want to get the data, so I would start right on that line, the first line that says USGS, start dragging down, and then let go and grab the scroll bar and go all the way to the end and do a shift click, and it'll select everything. And now I can do a Control-C copy, and now I can go over to Excel and paste the data in. So what I did, remember, I clicked the access data, I chose my time frame of the daily data. I came to here and chose the time frame. I told it tab separated, and then I hit go. Once I got that, I copy it. After dragging through, I can start the bottom too. Select, drag back to the top, or shift select, and it selects all the data. And now I'm going to copy paste into Excel. I have it copied, and now I'm going to go to Excel and start a new workbook. I'm going to close the other ones I had, and I'm going to start a new one. New blank workbook. Now, if you double click on a cell and paste it, you get one giant cell full of all the data. You don't want to paste it that way. You want to click only once on the cell, and then when you paste it, it knows to put every line into a separate row. That's an easy thing. It's like, what happened if you're in edit mode and you paste, you're piling everything in one cell. If you click once and then paste, then it's giving you multiple rows. Yeah.
What's the shortcut for paste?
A Control V. Control V is paste. And remember, I can right click, or oh, it doesn't show me. I guess it doesn't show me what the shortcut is for paste in Excel. But yeah, Control V is the standard paste. Now, I do see, I didn't notice, there's missing data there in 2019, but I think Excel will handle that. What I want to do now is graph this, but we got a problem. Do you see what the problem is? It's all in column A. If I double click, I see this is all piled in to cell A1. And Excel's not going to know how to graph this long text full of numbers and letters. We need to somehow separate this out into multiple columns. And Excel has a tool for that. I click on column A, the heading of column A, and I go to the Data tab, and you see the tool there available for you, built into Excel. Because this is a common thing to do, I can tell Excel, split this text into columns. With the column selected, text to columns, and now Excel is going to help me split this up into columns. I don't have it fixed with data, so I need to tell it it's delimited. So click delimited, and then click next. And it'll be, for you, it'll probably have tab as the first delimiter, and see, I don't see any lines. It doesn't know how to separate delimiter. I choose space for my delimiter. Yes, ma'am. Okay, doing one more time. Where do I need to start? Starting Excel? Where do I need to start? Have you pasted the data yet?
Yes, data's pasted, just that last little step.
Okay.
Data.
Do you have the column selected?
Yeah.
Data tab,
Yeah.
text to columns. Find it? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Text to columns, delimited, and now click next. And we're going to tell it how to delimit it. If it says tab, notice it doesn't know, it hasn't separated columns, but if I choose space, it does see, oh, I can delimit it with spaces. So that's the delimiter I want. Any other delimiter, it doesn't know how to separate the data. You can try multiple things, and sometimes you might have it work with tabs, but space is what works here. And I see now, oh, I know what columns now, the data preview. Now I click next. And here I can decide whether I want to keep a column. Now, do I care about this column here? No, I can say don't import that column. I don't need that data. General, that number is meaningless to me. I can say don't import that column. This, yes, I do want to see the date and the data. This column, I don't need that. I can say don't import that. Now, if I do import it, I can always just come back and delete that column anyway. So this just saves me from having to delete the column. Now when I click finish, look at that. It pops the data into 2 columns. Now I have something that I can graph. But before I graph it, let's give a title to the top, to each of these columns. So I'm going to insert a row by right-click Insert. And let's give it this name. Let's call this the date measured. Yes, ma'am. What's that?
I didn't do it right.
What part did you do right?
Maybe it was the do not do something. I probably did that wrong.
What?
Hashtags on me.
Let me see what you have. Did you get columns anyway?
I
It-
got 3 columns.
Okay, so what we can do is just click on the A, or right click on the A. No, on the, yeah, right click right on the letter A in that column header. No. Right on the letter A in the column header. Delete. That'll delete the column. And then double click on the border. There you go. Yeah, if you imported one, you can always delete the column if you
Sorry.
didn't want it.
Sorry, I got stuck on one spot. We just cut the space, right?
Yep,
And
yep.
then we have to do it.
Well, we can choose not to import, so click do not import that column. In general, do not import, and the very last one you can click do not import.
Okay.
No, you do want the
Oh,
date.
you do want
You
that
do
one.
want the
Same
date.
new general.
Yes.
Okay.
And the last one, you don't need that one.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Now, if you did import it, you would just have extra columns you could always delete anyway.
Okay, thank you.
And then, after you do that, we do want to add an extra row just because we're getting ready to graph it. We want to put here, we'll call this date measured, date of measurement. And this column, let's call that height, or river height. We'll call that river height. And you'll see when we graph it that having the column header just adds a label to our graph. So I have the data all pasted from the copy paste. What I want to do now is graph this data. Remember how we do charts and graphs? We just select the 2 columns by dragging through the column headings. And we say to Excel, hey, I want to graph from that. So I select through the 2 column headings to select all that data. And I go to Insert. Let's see what it recommends for a graph by clicking Recommended Charts.
Did you get the labels for data measurement and the river height?
I inserted a row. Let's do that over again. I did not have a row there. Okay, so I insert a row by right-clicking on that top row, right-click, Insert, and then put a title, Date Measurement, Date Measured, and then River Height. Just inserted a new row manually. Now I select those 2 columns, Insert Recommended Charts, and look at that. I have a scatter chart with a wide line. Let's make it a line chart. That's a little better looking. And then I click OK. This will create a chart of the data, and that should look a lot like the data where we got it from back here when I charted it. very similar to the chart they gave me. Now we're not going to move this to a new spreadsheet. Let's just enlarge that, make it nice right next to our data. We have a lovely chart. And let's add to the title, River Height. Oh, I don't need to add that. Let's add to that River Height at Grafton, or River Height, Grafton, Iowa.
I'm so sorry.
I'm trying to highlight it.
So you select it and then you go to.
Are you talking about getting the graph again?
Yeah.
All right. Here's how we do
I'm
it.
very sorry.
Select through the two columns. Do you have that? Select through the two columns. Insert, the Insert tab up above, and recommended charts, and line chart was the one recommended, and I just clicked line chart. And then, okay, and it gives you a line chart of that data. And it should look something like this. And I just edited the title to give it a better, meaningful title. All good? Now we're going to do this again down south because we'd like to compare, just to do our river study here, of what did the river look like down there. I'm going to adjust my data here just so I can see more of the graph. Oh. And while it's here on the page, I'm going to adjust it a little bit more. I want it to fit on one screen. As I just hover over any part of the graph, it will show me that data point. And it actually shows me that it's a particular date, and I can see at the very peak, if I hover in the right place and wait a little while, it will finally show me that that was May 30th. No, April 30th, 23. Let's see where the spike was in the next year. That was, hover a little bit, and gotta wait a little bit just in the right spot. And it should show me, if I'm there, oh, it's popped up. It'll finally show me if I hover just right when that came. Of course, I could always look here at the raw data itself. Yes?
My chart is really limited and it only shows a couple dates. For some reason, even though on my
Let's take a look.
Mine does the same thing.
Now, when you got the data, did you do multiple years? Looks like you don't have the right data. Let's go see. You see it started 11/4/2023. You did not change it to 2020. That when you were getting the data. So you only got 1 year's worth of data.
so
It should look like that.
I have to go back to the website.
Yeah, go back and get the 4 years of data.
Is that what mine is?
No, you got 4 years. If yours looks like mine,
But it
you
doesn't
got.
have
As you stretch it out, it'll start showing more dates. Okay. So what you're doing here, you're taking data from the internet, which was raw data, graphing it. You're starting to see information there, right? So there's raw data, terabytes out there for you. It's up to you to find data, and you can find insights. And here we actually see, well, maybe there's going to be a flood around that time each year. As you did more, you might realize, hey, it's always comes up this particular date. Depending on what you're analyzing, financial data or market data, you may realize, hey, there's a trend here. Maybe every time a month before the election, something goes high or something goes low that I better get rid of or buy. Sadly, they're already doing it. I don't know if they found any trends. If they do find a trend before you do, then they may actually affect the data when they buy millions of stuff and become a billionaire before you do. But maybe you'll be the one that, based on trends out there, discover something that, hey, I found out something's going to happen, and I can help somebody, or do some investment, or purchase something, or sell, or find out where not to be. Here's the place that something happens bad every time this year. Maybe I should be there. Everybody find the data, able to graph it? Well, let's do it again with another location on the river, just to practice this whole technique of getting data, importing it, or pasting it into Excel, and then graphing it. And then we're going to do some more with it. So you basically just did a copy paste. Now, we're doing the same thing from a different location.
So we have this data. Let's go now and get it from another place. So go back to our graphs. Let's see, where's the graph? Where did I get the data from? Let's go back to the graph map. And let's go downriver now. Back to the original site. Let's go downriver, past Clinton, past Dubuque. Hey, everybody at MAS. Clinton, my sister down in Quincy. Coming down the river. There's my sister lives. There's a Quincy measurement. Now let's go down and measure the river in Quincy and just see how that compares to Dubuque. That's the next gauge down from Dubuque. There used to be more gauges. I don't know if they're shutting them down or what. Let's click on the Quincy. Well, it's near Quincy. Let's click on that and see if that is in Hannibal, Missouri. Let's measure that. Let's get a graph of that and just see, will the spikes look the same? What would you expect to see? Let's go ahead and do the same thing. Access the data at Hannibal. Everyone be able to find Hannibal? Yeah, we did get one student. They were lost in the United States. Hannibal is just downriver from Dubuque. I'll zoom out a little bit. Here's Dubuque way up here, and just follow the river down. You almost go straight south of Dubuque. You'll run into Quincy and then Hannibal, Highway 36, 72. Here's St. Louis. Here's Dubuque up here. Here's Quincy. So it doesn't matter how much I zoom in. If I see Quincy, just click on that, and then let's go get Quincy data. We're going to do the same thing. Access the data. We're going to get the daily data. Yep, it does go to today. Let's go get the daily data. Change the year to 2020. 2020 is when we want to start. No, sorry, 2019, right? 2019. Get the tab separated data. And then click go. All right. 2019. Tab separated. What? You can't find Quincy? Are you able to find Dubuque? Here's Dubuque here. Just go straight south of Dubuque. You zoom out a little bit, you'll be able to see it. Quincy right here. Dubuque up here. I'll see it. There's Dubuque. Almost straight down. Just down and to the left. You find it? Let me come help you. Go straight south. Zoom out a little bit. Scroll bar a little bit. Okay. Out. Click and drag up. Grab the other one. Drag them out. Keep going up. Here's the river. You're almost there. There it is. Just south of Quincy. And access data. Okay. And then daily data. And then adjust the begin date to 2019 for the year. Begin date at 2019. And then tab separated button. Yeah, and then go. So Quincy and tab separated, and here I am. 2019. Make sure I'm at the right place. Hannibal, Missouri. It's just south of Quincy. Click go. Daily data. And same thing, I'm going to select, drag, scroll down. Oh, select, scroll down, and shift select. Control C copy. And now I go back to Excel and paste it into Excel. I don't want to paste it in this data. I want to start a new worksheet. Before I forget, let's name this worksheet Grafton, Iowa. Yep.
Didn't it say it was from Clayton, Iowa?
Oh, Clayton. Oh, I had the wrong. And yeah, 2019. So Clayton, Iowa. Sorry. I'll have to fix. Yeah. That's right. Don't want to collect the wrong data. Now I'm going to click the plus to add a new page to this workbook. And Control V, paste the data. And just like I did before, I need to separate this data out into multiple columns. Data, text to columns. And just like we did before, delimited. And it remembers my last delimiter. It remembers space delimiter. Yep. And I see lines showing me, yeah, I'll divide this into multiple columns. I click next. And I can skip columns I don't need. I don't need that column. I don't need that column. I don't need that column. So it's skipping those, just giving me the date and the height there in Hannibal. And I click finish. And I see that this date, yep, that's the date. Let's do that same graph. Select through both columns. Insert. Let's see what chart it recommends. It hopes there's a line chart it recommends. Yep, it recommends a line chart. And notice, even though I didn't give it column headings, I didn't add the row, it just gives me a generic title now. That's fine. I can always change that to be Hannibal or river data, river height in Hannibal, Missouri.
Were you at text to columns, or where was the thing where you?
Yep. Did the text to columns and then entered the data. Yep.
I'm sorry, I'm not really.
Did you find Hannibal? And you got the data? Double click on the column. Double click on the column for B there. On B, double click. Now we don't need column A, so go ahead and delete column A. Don't need, you didn't do it in column A. Go ahead and delete column A. No, that's not deleting the column. Right click on the column heading. You didn't need that column.
For the top column.
I don't know what was in your top row. You deleted some data. Now just go ahead and delete the column. A. Delete the column. And now just double click on that. There you go. Those are the two columns we want to grab. Now select your A and B and insert. Yeah, insert. Now choose the ones that you. Looks like that's good. Yeah, you got the red deliver. Next. Now you can skip that column. You want that one, skip that one. Choose the second one and skip that one. Yeah, maybe not. Yep. And then skip that. And now you can select both columns and insert a graph. You don't need to put a row in it. Do it. Just select one of the two columns. No, you don't have to do that. Just drag left A to B. Okay. And now insert the graph.
Now, we've got the graph. I've added a title to it. Let's stretch it out to be a similar size. Oops. Got to grab it in the right place here to get it to properly behave. Now I have this graph and I have this graph. Oh, let's title this one Hannibal. I could bop back and forth between the two and see, oh, I see how they compare. How about graphing them on one graph? Oh, I see I got a problem here. I got the wrong data range. I have 2019 here and I have 2021 here. I graphed the wrong data range. I didn't get the right data range. I got to fix mine. I messed up.
That's as far back as it goes.
What? Oh, wow, that's going to give me a problem if I try to map them one on each other. How would I do that? Yeah, I've got to go. I guess I can shorten the data in the Clayton, Iowa one back to only include up to starting at 11/5/2021. I hadn't realized that Hannibal didn't give us back in history far enough. Well, that gives us a new problem here. Let's see what happens if I delete data. Will it fix my chart? Let's see if I can delete that 1 year's worth of data. I'm going to select that row, scroll all the way down to.
Should we do this too?
I'm gonna try it first. I'm gonna scroll all the way down to November 2020. What was that? 2021. So they lost. We missed 2 years. So let's scroll all the way down to 2021, November, and let's see what happens. If I delete all the way to there, will it fix my graph? What do you think? Let's see what happens. Either the graph will blow up or it will shorten automatically. Let's see what happens. If I right-click, delete those rows, my graph. Oh, my chart was in those rows, so it deleted the chart. I guess that'll work because I'll just redo the chart then. So I'll delete those rows.
What date are we going to in November?
Let's see. This one started 11/5. So yeah, delete everything up to 11/5.
No, wait, what? No.
I realized that Clayton, Iowa, or Hannibal only went back to 11/5, so I deleted the data in the Clayton, Iowa one, so I have the same time span.
What did you just do?
I deleted the rows all the way, everything up through 11/4/2021.
So deleted rows two, just two?
No, the two all the way up to where the date shows 11/4/2021. The only reason I'm doing that is because this only gives me back that far, and I want them to be on the same time span.
1 through 5.
I don't know the number. I just went all the way till I found the date 11/4/2021. This is another thing you'll have with data. If you want it to match, you want the same time frame. And now I'm just going to re-graph it. So I deleted data all the way out to
All the way to what?
11/4, where it says the date 11/4/2021. Delete all those rows. Yeah.
Is there a fast way to like select all those? Like, can I select the first two and then jump?
And then you can shift select the last one. Yeah. Yeah. If you want to select multiple rows, you can click that one and then go down to where you can delete it and shift select, and it'll select that and everything in between. Let me show you that. I'm going to undo my delete again. Here's before I deleted it. I click on row 2, and let's see where the row starts. 11/4/2021. There it is, right there. Row 733. Shift click and right click delete. Just the key delete only deletes the data, not the rows. Right click delete deletes the rows. Now I can regraph over the same time span. Do the same thing. Select the two columns by selecting through the column headings. Insert. Recommended chart. Line chart.
Then you just select all the data after you delete it?
Yeah, do the same thing. After delete it, then I'm just regraphing.
Are you deleting 11/4?
Yeah, delete 11/4. So because the other one started at 11/5, I want my data to start at the same. And remember, the only reason I'm doing it is so the two graphs have the same time span. And now I have two graphs over the same time span. And now, in the last 5 minutes here, we want to do the next spectacular thing. We want to graph them on the same graph.
After you delete to 11/4, do you delete the old graph and make a new graph?
Yep, I made a new graph.
Also, if I didn't delete the graph, it did adjust to it.
What's that?
My graph, if I didn't delete it, it did adjust.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah, if you don't do if the graph isn't in those cells, I thought the graph was kind of floating above the cells, but it deleted my graph for me. So if you move the graph and don't delete it, it will adjust the proper data source. Now comes something. Yes.
Like the cells that have the data in it, and then you write
Oh, right.
out the rows, just the cells,
then the graph adjusts it.
And then just click shift the cells up and down like this.
There you go. Good job.
I don't think my graph is right. It's very small.
Very small graph?
Oh, did you try adjusting the size of your graph?
I made a graph of the eight one after going to
Yeah. Well, you changed it to a line graph instead of a scatter graph. You chose the wrong style of graph. That's not the one we want. We want this time when it shows you, the first one is the right one. That's the one. Yeah. The first time it's the first one. All right. Now we want to get the same data on the same two sets of data on one graph. A little more complicated. And just so we don't wipe out what we've already done, let's make a copy of this sheet and then mess with the copy. Then we don't have to worry about breaking any beautiful graphs we've already created. So let's right click on the Clayton, Iowa, and let's make a copy of it by doing move or copy. Click create a copy and then click OK. Now we have a new graph and we can play with this one. Let's call it combined. So I made a copy, renaming it combined, and now I have the Clayton data. I want to combine it with the Hannibal data. Watch how this is probably not user friendly at all. In Google Sheets it's much more user friendly. I made a copy. Now I can right click on this graph and select data. Select the data that's being used in this graph. Right click on it, select data. And I want to add more data to this graph. So I'm going to click add. And this is where it's not friendly at all. I want to change series values from this equal bracket 1. Going to delete that. And I'm going to click this little arrow thingy and I'm going to select where it's going to get the data for the new series, the additional series. So delete what's there. Click this little arrow. Yeah. Do you need me to get here again?
I'm so sorry.
Where are you?
I just made a copy of the sheet.
Okay. Do you have the graph on the sheet?
On the new sheet?
Yeah. Are you on the new sheet?
Yes, the same.
Okay. Right click. Select data. Do you see select data? Right click, select data. See the add? Add. Click the add. You find the add? Okay, click add. Come down to series values and backspace over that. Find it? Okay. And then click this little arrow thingy. I don't know what it's really called. I call it the arrow thingy. This will let me now point and click where I want to get the data from. And where do I want to get the data from? I click on the Hannibal, Missouri tab and click column B. And hit enter. And hit OK or enter again and watch what happens. It will graph column B in the other graph in line with my data. So this is showing us, again, not terribly obvious at all. It took me a while to figure this one out. I knew it was possible to graph multiple things on one graph. Do I need to do it again?
Do the exact same thing you just did with her, and I don't have the blue.
You, because your data is probably exactly the same. You chose the wrong graph, or you have the same graph on both. On the combined one, you only see one orange line, right? That's because you chose data from the same location. Now, what does this show us? Well, Hannibal is not that far from Dubuque, but it does show that there is a delay in that peak in that year. Here it peaked at 5/8/2023. In Dubuque, or north of Dubuque, it peaked at what date? At 4/30. So we see the delay in the peak. How long it takes water to get from here to Hannibal is about 2 weeks. And it's about the same peak, except it's slightly lower. I guess I would attribute that to the lock and dam system that's helping to control the height of the river. It got a little higher there to keep this peak from getting too high there. Here they didn't control it so well, perhaps it's because it was building up over a long